Florence Mabel Kling was born above her father's hardware store at 126 South Main Street in Marion, Ohio, on August 15, 1860. Florence was the eldest of 3 children of Amos Kling. Florence attended school at Union School beginning in 1866 and studied the classics. At the age of 19, she eloped with Henry Arthurton De Wolfe, and they were married in Columbus, Ohio, on January 22, 1880. Florence gave birth to her only child, Marshall Eugene, on September 22, 1880. As a piano teacher, one of her students was Charity Harding, the sister of her future husband. Her estranged husband had attempted to rob a train in 1885, and the pair were divorced in 1886. Eventually, she met Warren G. Harding, owner of the Marion Star. Warren and Florence became a couple by the summer of 1886. This was a big deal since for years, Amos Kling and Warren Harding had been feuding. In 1890, Florence became engaged to Warren Harding. They married on July 8, 1891. After the wedding, the couple embarked on a honeymoon tour of Chicago, St. Paul, Yellowstone, and the Great Lakes. When her husband entered the Battle Creek Sanitarium for depression in January 1894, Florence became the informal business manager of the Marion Star. She organized a circulation department, improved distribution, trained the newsboys, and purchased equipment at keen prices. Warren returned to work in December 1894. After the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898, Florence was instrumental in developing the first wire report. She hired the first woman reporter in Ohio, Jane Dixon, and supported her when there was a backlash from the people of Marion, Ohio. Florence encouraged her husband in his first political run for the state senate in 1899, and Warren was ultimately elected. In early 1903, Warren sought nomination as lieutenant governor and won by overall margins. In February 1905, Florence needed emergency surgery for nephrotosis, commonly referred to as floating kidney. During this time, Warren began an affair with her close friend, Carrie Phillips. Florence did not find out until she intercepted a letter between the two in 1911. By 1920, Warren was a contender for the Republican presidential nomination. On March 4, 1921, Florence Harding became First Lady, immediately taking an active role in national politics. Secret Service agent Harry L. Barker was assigned to protect Florence, making her the first First Lady to have her own Secret Service agent. In Warren's first pronouncement as president, he ordered the gates of the Executive Mansion to be opened to the public as per Florence's wishes. By the time the Executive Mansion opened to the public, Florence offered to act as tour guide herself. Many different groups and individuals came to meet her, ranging from Bill Tilden to Albert Einstein. As Executive Mansion hostess, Florence presided over elegant parties that often had several thousand guests, where her husband would refer to her as the Duchess. Despite her growing popularity with the public, high society largely shunned Florence and favored Second Lady Grace Coolidge, with whom Florence had an uneasy relationship. Florence became the first First Lady since Frances Cleveland, whose face was so recognizable to the public as she frequently appeared in newsreel footage alongside Warren, unveiling statues, attending baseball games, and dedicating the Lincoln Memorial. The first couple increased their popularity by attending movie screenings and meeting actors who were previously seen as vulgar by high society. Florence was critical of American support to aid relief of the 1921 Soviet famine, arguing that Russia should have given up communism before accepting American food and medicine. Florence's own special agenda was the welfare of war veterans. Florence went out of her way to care for the patients at Walter Reed Hospital, seeking to improve ward life. In July 1922, the Hardings returned to Marion, Ohio to take part in its centennial celebration. Florence greeted Nan Britton during the festivities, unaware she was carrying on an affair with her husband. Florence later instructed her Secret Service agent Harry Barker to keep tabs on her husband. Her discovery of the affair with Nan Britton took its toll on her health. In early September, she came down with a serious kidney ailment, and the public was alerted as to the severity of it on September 8th in a medical bulletin. She then began to suffer from septicemia and was falling in and out of consciousness. News of Florence's illness sparked an outpouring of support throughout the country. By September 11, her condition had worsened. Florence insisted she would not die because her husband needed her. By Thanksgiving Day, Florence was well enough to preside over her first dinner since the illness. Florence declared this illness has been a blessing, since it drew her husband closer to her. In early June 1923, they set out on a journey, which he dubbed the Voyage of Understanding. The president planned to cross the country, go north to the Alaska Territory, journey south along the west coast, then travel by a U.S. Navy ship from San Diego, California, down to the Panama Canal to Puerto Rico, and return to Washington, D.C. at the end of August. On July 5th, they embarked on the USS Henderson in Washington. They were the first president and First Lady to visit Alaska, and spent hours watching the dramatic landscape from the deck of the USS Henderson. On July 26, 1923, President Harding toured Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, as the first sitting American president to visit that country, which also meant that Florence Harding was the First Lady to visit Canada. President Harding collapsed on the morning of July 29, 1923 in San Francisco, California, and was then rushed to the Palace Hotel. Doctors found that not only was his heart causing problems, but also that he had pneumonia, and he was confined to bed rest in his hotel room. Doctors treated him, and he seemed to improve. By the afternoon of August 2nd, Warren Harding's condition still seemed to be improving, and his doctors allowed him to sit up in bed. At around 7:30 p.m. that evening, Florence was reading to him A Calm Review of a Calm Man, a flattering article about him in the Saturday Evening Post. She paused, and he told her, "That's good. Go on, read some more." She resumed reading when, a few seconds later, Warren twisted convulsively and collapsed back in the bed, gasping. Florence Harding immediately called the doctors into the room. They were unable to revive him with stimulants. Warren Harding was pronounced dead a few minutes later, at the age of 57. After the Washington, D.C. funeral service, Harding's body was transported to Marion, Ohio, for burial. In Marion, Harding's body was placed on a horse-drawn hearse, which was followed by the now President Calvin Coolidge and Chief Justice Taft, then by Harding's widow and his father. They followed the hearse through the city to the Marion Cemetery, where the casket was placed in the cemetery's receiving vault. Funeral guests included inventor Thomas Edison and industrialist businessman Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone. Florence had intended to make a new life in Washington, D.C., and was planning a tour of Europe. But when her kidney ailment returned, she stayed in Marion, Ohio. Her last public appearance was at the local Remembrance Day parade, where she stood to salute the veterans. On November 21, 1924, she died of renal failure. Florence Harding was laid with her husband in the common receiving vault at Marion City Cemetery until the completion of the Harding tomb.